What if the child you prayed for, dreamed of for years, wasn't just a blessing, but a return from the past? In a forgotten corner of southeastern Nigeria, a woman named Afoma had suffered in silence, her heart heavy with the weight of infertility. 8 long years of prayers, yet no answer came. The village murmured, wondering if her bloodline would fade forever. But one night, everything changed. Amara was born, but this was no ordinary birth. From the moment Amara arrived, there was something otherworldly about her. A crescent moon-shaped birthmark, identical to the one that had once marked Afoma's late mother, Nneka, appeared on her tiny arm. As Amara grew, her actions became even more unsettling. She spoke of people and places long gone, recounting tales only Nneka could have known. In her eyes, there was a wisdom, an ancient knowing, that seemed far too old for a child. Who is this child really? Could Amara be Nneka reborn? Afoma's mother returned to heal the past? Or is there something even darker at play? Something more mysterious than Afoma could ever have imagined? This is the true story of Ilo Uwa, the Igbo belief that the dead return to their loved ones as children. So, sit back, because this is Africa Unveiled. Before we dive in, I know many of you are watching from around the world, united by a love for Africa. Drop a comment and let me know where you're tuning in from. I'll be in the comments engaging with you. And if you're enjoying the content, a like and subscription would truly mean the world to me. Alright, let's get back to the video. In the ancient tranquil Igbo village of Umuahia, life carried on as it had for generations. The rhythm of the village, woven into the daily tasks of farming, storytelling, and the reverence for ancestors, was steady and constant. Yet for Afoma, one thing had always eluded her: motherhood. For 8 years, she had endured the silent pain of barrenness, watching as her friends and family bore children and watched them grow. In the quiet of night, she had knelt before the gods, whispered to the ancestors, asking for a blessing. Her husband, Ikenna, was gentle with her, but the pressure from the village was undeniable. The elders whispered behind their hands, casting furtive glances when they passed by. It was no secret. Afoma's womb seemed barren, and the legacy of her bloodline appeared destined to end with her. But Afoma, though weary, never lost hope. She continued to visit the village shrine, offering sacrifices to the gods, lighting candles and whispering her prayers into the wind. The villagers, seeing her dedication, had begun to refer to her as Nneka, the mother of hope. But even hope has its limits, and as the seasons passed, Afoma's faith began to crack. Would she ever become a mother? Then, on one fateful evening, as the sun began to set over the fields, a miracle occurred. It started as a soft rustling in the trees, a breeze that stirred the air with a sense of anticipation. Afoma, sitting by the fire in her hut, felt a sudden warmth spread through her chest. She felt something stir deep within her, a force she couldn't explain. Then, in that moment, she heard the cry of a baby. Ikenna rushed in, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Afoma, is it?" he whispered, kneeling beside her. In the dim light of the hut, Afoma gazed down at the tiny figure cradled in her arms. A baby girl, perfect in every way. Her skin was soft and smooth, her eyes wide with a knowing gaze that seemed far beyond her years. The baby's name, Amara, was chosen almost instinctively, meaning grace or mercy. Afoma's heart swelled with joy as she held the child close, overwhelmed by the feeling that this was a divine gift. But it wasn't just the baby's arrival that felt miraculous. It was something else. something strange. As Afoma lovingly ran her fingers over Amara's tiny body, she noticed something. On her left arm, just above her wrist, was a small crescent-shaped mark. It was a birthmark, distinct and smooth, like a tiny scar. But as Afoma stared at it, she froze. It was the same crescent moon symbol that had adorned the arm of Nneka, her mother, who had passed away years ago. The same mark that had once been a symbol of her mother's wisdom, of her power as the village's spiritual leader. The villagers began to gather outside Afoma's hut, sensing something extraordinary had happened. Whispers spread quickly. Was this a sign from the gods? Could this child be the reincarnation of Nneka? Was it possible that Afoma's mother had returned to guide her once more? Afoma, though deeply moved by the coincidence, dismissed it. She believed it was simply a gift from the gods, a blessing she had longed for. After all, the gods were mysterious in their ways, and what better way to answer her prayers than through the child she had always wanted? Her doubts were pushed aside by the overwhelming joy she felt. Days passed, and the village buzzed with excitement. But as the weeks went on, Afoma began to notice something unusual about her daughter. At only a few months old, Amara's gaze seemed different, intentional, focused, wise beyond her age. She made eye contact with people in a way that was both unsettling and profound, as if she understood them better than they understood themselves. One afternoon, as Afoma rocked her daughter in her arms, Amara looked up at her, a quiet smile playing on her lips. It was a simple smile, but it was one that made Afoma's heart skip a beat. It was the same smile Nneka used to give her, a smile that held an ancient understanding of the world, a smile that spoke without words. Afoma's heart tightened. She shook her head, brushing off the thought. It's just a mother's imagination, she told herself. Amara is just a baby. But there was no denying it. Amara's presence, her gaze, and even the way she smiled seemed to echo something much deeper, something beyond the realm of the ordinary. And so, Afoma's journey began, a journey that would lead her to question the very nature of life and death, and the mysterious forces that shape our destinies. Little did she know, the long-awaited gift of her daughter would unravel a truth that was as old as time itself. As Amara grew, the changes in her became harder to ignore. She was not like other children her age. While other babies of the village cooed and babbled, Amara spoke in phrases that seemed far too advanced for someone of her tender years. Her words were laced with wisdom, with the quiet authority of someone who had lived much longer than the span of her few months. One evening, as the golden glow of dusk settled over the village, Afoma sat in the courtyard, cradling Amara in her lap. The sky was painted in shades of amber and purple, and the air was thick with the scent of jasmine. Amara gazed up at the sky, her tiny fingers reaching out toward the heavens, as if trying to grasp something unseen. She promised to return, Amara whispered, her voice soft yet clear. Afoma paused, her heart skipping a beat. Who promised, my child? Amara turned her gaze toward her, the young face innocent but with a knowing expression that unsettled Afoma. She repeated the words in the same tone, as though speaking to a spirit only she could see. Nneka promised. She said she would return. Afoma's breath caught in her throat. Nneka, her mother, the woman who had raised her with love and wisdom, the woman who had passed away many years ago, the woman who had left a hole in her heart that nothing could fill. Amara, Afoma said, trying to steady her voice. You must not speak like that. Nneka is gone. You are my daughter. But Amara, her eyes unblinking, simply smiled. It was a smile that seemed both comforting and sorrowful, as if she understood something Afoma did not. She said nothing more, but the words lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. As the days passed, the strange occurrences became more frequent. One morning, Afoma entered the room to find Amara sitting upright in her cot, her eyes closed, her small hands resting on her knees in a meditative pose. At first, Afoma thought it was a coincidence. After all, children often sat up on their own. But this felt different. There was something ancient in the stillness of Amara's posture, as though she was communing with forces far beyond her years. "Amara," Afoma called softly, but her daughter didn't respond. Instead, Amara's lips parted, and words that Afoma had never heard before slipped from her mouth. Words in an ancient dialect, one that only the elders could understand. "I see you, mother," Amara whispered. "I see your pain. I see your heart, broken by her loss." Afoma's heart raced. This was impossible. She had never spoken these words aloud, never told anyone the depth of her sorrow over her mother's death. Yet Amara spoke them with a calmness, a depth of understanding that shook Afoma to her core. In the following weeks, more things happened. Small things, subtle things, that confirmed what Afoma could no longer deny. Amara would often repeat the stories of Nneka's life, stories that Afoma had never shared with her. How Nneka would visit the sacred grove by the river, how she had guided the village through times of drought, how she had always known the right words to comfort others. Amara, without anyone teaching her, seemed to know these things. One evening, as they sat together by the fire, Afoma decided to ask her daughter a question. She had to know if there was some truth to the strange words that had been plaguing her mind. "Amara," Afoma began hesitantly, "do you remember anything about Nneka? About my mother?" Amara looked up at her, her eyes shining with an unspoken wisdom. She tilted her head, as if contemplating the question, and then, with the calmness of someone who had seen beyond the veil of time, she said softly, "I remember. I remember the way she loved you, how she would sing to you when you were sad. I remember her voice, her laughter." The wind stirred gently, and for a moment, Afoma swore she could feel the presence of her mother in the air, as if Nneka was there, standing beside them, watching over her. The chill of dread crept up Afoma's spine. You speak as if you were there with her," she whispered, her voice trembling. Amara nodded slowly. "I was. I am." Afoma could not speak. Her heart, already fragile from years of pain, seemed to crack open with the weight of this revelation. Could it be true? Could her daughter truly be the reincarnation of Nneka, her mother, returned to her after all these years? The thought was both comforting and terrifying. Afoma had longed for her mother's wisdom, for the guidance that only Nneka could provide, but the idea that Amara, her beloved daughter, might be the vessel of that wisdom felt like an impossible paradox. How could she, a mother, accept that her child might not be just a child, but something far more ancient, far more powerful than she could comprehend? That night, as Afoma lay in bed, staring up at the darkened ceiling, she remembered the words of the village elders, whispered in the corners of sacred groves. The souls of the ancestors never truly leave. They wait for the moment when they are needed again. They return to heal, to guide, to mend what is broken. The words echoed in her mind, and for the first time, Afoma allowed herself to believe in the possibility that Amara was not just her daughter, but a part of something much greater, a continuation of a spiritual cycle that transcended death itself. But even as she entertained this thought, doubt still lingered, gnawing at her. Was she truly ready to accept this truth? Was she prepared to believe that the child she had longed for was not just her own, but the return of a loved one she had lost? The tension between belief and disbelief grew within her, and she knew that the answers would come soon. But for now, she was left with only questions and the eerie feeling that the past, in all its spiritual depth, was beginning to unravel before her eyes. Days turned into weeks, and Afoma's mind grew heavier with the questions that plagued her. Was Amara truly the reincarnation of Nneka? If so, what did that mean for their family, their lineage, and their spiritual future? Afoma's once peaceful life had become a maelstrom of mystery, and the only thing that felt certain was the growing connection between mother and child, a connection that seemed to reach beyond this lifetime, to a time long before. Unable to contain her unease any longer, Afoma decided to seek counsel from the village elders, the wise men and women who held the sacred knowledge of the Igbo people. These elders were the keepers of ancestral wisdom, the spiritual guides who knew the sacred customs and beliefs of their people. If there was anyone who could help her make sense of what was happening, it would be them. The elders gathered under the wide canopy of an ancient fig tree, the sacred meeting place of the village. The air was thick with the scent of incense, and the ground beneath their feet was soft with years of offerings. Afoma knelt before them, her heart heavy with the weight of her question. "Elders of Umuahia," Afoma began, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and hope, "I come before you with a question that haunts me. My daughter, Amara, she speaks of things that no child should know. She speaks of my mother, Nneka, as though she were there with her. She speaks in tongues that are ancient, words that only you, the elders, would understand. I need to know, could it be that my daughter is the reincarnation of my mother?" The elders exchanged looks, their faces unreadable. They had seen many things in their lifetimes, but this was a question that reached deep into the heart of their most sacred beliefs. After a long silence, one of the elders, an ancient woman named Mama Ada, spoke. "Afoma," she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of years. "In our culture, we believe in the concept of Ilo Uwa, reincarnation. It is a sacred part of our spiritual understanding, a belief that souls do not die, but instead return to heal the living. The soul that leaves the body does not vanish. It waits until the time is right to return in another form, to continue its work, to mend what has been broken." Afoma listened intently, her heart pounding. She had heard of Ilo Uwa before, but hearing it spoken aloud in the presence of the elders made the concept feel more real, more tangible. "Your mother, Nneka," Mama Ada continued, "was a wise and powerful woman. She was a spiritual leader in our village, and her death left a void that many still feel. Perhaps, Afoma, Nneka's spirit has returned to you, not to live for herself, but to continue the work she began, to guide you, to heal you, and to heal the wounds of your soul." Afoma's mind raced as Mama Ada's words sank in. It was a comforting thought, the idea that her mother had returned to guide her, to fill the void left by her passing. But there was another part of the story that unsettled her. The thought that her daughter, her beloved Amara, might not just be a child, but the vessel of Nneka's spirit, carrying within her the wisdom and power of a life that had already been lived. "Amara," Afoma whispered, her voice shaking. "She leads me to places, sacred places where we perform rituals that my mother used to perform. She speaks the words, the incantations, as though she knows them by heart. She even remembers things about my mother, things that only Nneka would know. The elders nodded solemnly, understanding the gravity of Afoma's words. This is not just a coincidence, Afoma, another elder, Baba Nadi, said, his voice deep and resonant. What you are witnessing is a return, a spiritual rebirth. Amara is not just your daughter. She is Nneka returned, carrying the wisdom of her former life. Afoma sat in stunned silence. Could it be true? Was Amara truly the vessel of her mother's soul? The thought overwhelmed her, and yet, deep within her, a quiet part of her soul whispered yes. She had felt it in the way Amara looked at her, in the way her daughter spoke with an understanding that defied her age. The days that followed were filled with even more revelations. Amara, with an almost otherworldly calm, continued to guide Afoma on pilgrimages to sacred sites. They visited the riverbank, where Nneka had once made offerings to the gods, and there, Amara led them in rituals that had been passed down for generations. In one particular ceremony, Amara, standing by the water, spoke in an ancient dialect that none of the villagers could understand, except for the elders. As her words echoed in the air, a deep sense of reverence washed over Afoma, and she realized that Amara was not simply following in her mother's footsteps. She was channeling Nneka's spirit. But there was one moment that would change everything. One evening, during a village celebration, Amara fell into a trance-like state, her body still, her eyes unfocused. The villagers watched in awe as she began to speak in a voice that was not her own, her words a mixture of ancient Igbo and a dialect long forgotten by the living. "The time has come," Amara said, her voice carrying the weight of prophecy. "A mother shall return to heal the wounds of her daughter. The cycle shall be completed, and the broken soul shall be made whole. But there will be a test. Afoma must pass this test. Only then will she understand the full truth." The air grew heavy with anticipation as the words echoed through the crowd. The villagers, though frightened, could not tear their eyes away from the child who spoke with such authority, as though the very earth itself had given her the words to speak. Afoma's heart raced. A test? What test? And what was the truth that awaited her? The prophecy hung in the air, a riddle that Afoma knew she would have to unravel. She felt a wave of dread and excitement wash over her. What was coming? The answer, she knew, was not far off, and when it came, it would change everything. The days that followed the prophecy were filled with a sense of growing tension. Afoma could not shake the words that Amara had spoken in that trance-like state. Afoma must pass this test. Only then will she understand the full truth. The villagers had their own interpretations, but none of them could answer the most pressing question. What test? Amara, however, seemed to know. Her demeanor shifted as she entered adolescence, her presence even more commanding, yet serene. Her eyes, once soft and innocent, now held a deep and ancient wisdom, one that mirrored the essence of Nneka. Afoma could feel the weight of it, but she had come to accept it. Slowly, she began to understand that Amara was not just her daughter. She was Nneka, returned to her in a new form. One evening, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, Afoma and Amara sat by the river, the same sacred river where Nneka had once performed rituals for the gods. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and the soft hum of the wind, as if nature itself were holding its breath. Afoma, her heart heavy with anticipation, looked at her daughter. "Amara," she said softly, her voice quivering. "What is the test? What must I do to understand the truth?" Amara gazed at her with eyes that seemed to look not just at her, but through her, to a place far beyond this world. The test, Mother, is not for you to pass. It is for you to let go, to accept the truth of what you cannot see with your eyes, but feel with your heart. You must understand that I am not just your daughter. I am the spirit of Nneka, reborn to help you heal. Afoma's chest tightened. Let go? She was not sure if she was ready for what those words meant. What does it mean to let go? I've waited for so long to have a daughter. How could I release her? Amara's voice softened, the wisdom of ages in her tone. Love is not a bond that holds you back, Mother. Love is a bond that sets you free. The greatest gift you can give me is not your fear, but your trust. Trust that I am here to heal the wounds you have carried. Trust that I will always be with you, no matter the form I take. The water rippled gently in front of them, as though the river itself was speaking, carrying with it the wisdom of the ages. Afoma felt a wave of understanding wash over her. She closed her eyes, allowing herself to fully absorb the weight of Amara's words. Her mind flashed to moments of her childhood, to the teachings of Nneka, to the love and guidance her mother had given her. It was then that Afoma understood. The test was not about proving anything to Amara. It was about opening her heart, letting go of the need to possess her daughter, and accepting truth that love transcends time. Amara's next words were both a comfort and a farewell. Mother, I must go. My time with you in this form is ending. I am not meant to stay here forever. My soul has fulfilled its purpose, and now it must continue its journey. I am Nneka's spirit, but I will always find my way back to you. You will always find me. Tears welled in Afoma's eyes. Please don't leave me. I've only just found you again. Amara smiled, a serene expression that echoed the smile of Nneka. You have found me, Mother, but I must go to continue the work of healing. It is the way of the Spirit. I will be with you always. Every time you look into the water, every time you feel the wind on your face, I will be there. With those words, Amara stood, her form glowing faintly in the dimming light, as if her very essence was beginning to shift. Afoma watched in awe as her daughter took a step toward the river, and then, as if guided by unseen hands, she disappeared into the rippling water, her figure dissolving into the mist that rose from the surface. Afoma stood frozen, her heart torn between grief and a deep, indescribable peace. The loss of her daughter, the child she had prayed for, was a sorrow that would take time to heal. But in that moment, she understood that Amara was not gone. She was simply transformed, and she too would be transformed by the experience. As Afoma stood by the river, the last traces of sunlight faded from the sky, and a soft mist rose from the water. She looked into the stillness of the river's surface and saw something that made her breath catch, a reflection of herself. But it was not her face that stared back. It was Nneka's face, her mother's face, smiling softly as if to say, "You are not alone. I am always with you." And then, as the mist cleared, Afoma saw Amara again, standing beside her mother, a young woman now, wise and strong. Their spirits, intertwined across time, would always remain connected. The bonds of love, though tested by time, could never be broken. The story of Afoma and Amara reflects the Igbo belief in Ilo Uwa, the sacred concept of reincarnation. In Igbo culture, death is not the end, but a transition, with spirits returning to guide, heal, and protect. The soul is eternal, waiting to be reborn into the family, to fulfill its spiritual purpose. Amara's birth is not just the return of Afoma's longed-for child, but the reincarnation of Afoma's late mother, Nneka. This sacred return is marked by signs, like Amara's crescent moon birthmark, and a mission to heal the past. Ilo Uwa teaches that souls return with wisdom from their previous lives, tasked with restoring balance and guiding the living. Afoma's acceptance of Amara as Nneka reborn embodies this truth, that love and wisdom transcend death, continually evolving across lifetimes. The practice of Ilo Uwa highlights the interconnectedness of the physical and spiritual realms. It teaches that our loved ones never truly leave us. They return in new forms, guiding us through life's challenges. Ultimately, this myth reinforces the enduring power of ancestral wisdom and the timeless bond between mothers and children, a connection that transcends death and reincarnation, reminding us that the ties between us and our ancestors are everlasting. If you enjoyed this deep dive into African spirituality and the concept of reincarnation, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Stay connected and never miss another story that explores the rich, powerful myths that shape our history. Like, comment, and let me know which African mythology you'd love to explore next.